every single week we get a heap of questions, whether it's on YouTube, Insta, the podcast, Facebook, through our website, through our blog, through sessions with clients, through sessions with people like yourself that are booking in through our website, the free strategy sessions. So I thought it would be fun today to go through some of the ones that we've received in the last couple of weeks and just share a different approach to this stuff with you. I'm just going to freestyle this like I do everything, but hopefully you get a few little nuggets of gold as we go through this. The first question was from Simo, and he said, can you please do a list of recommended books and podcasts that you enjoy that you get value out of? If you were to come into the storage room in our office, I've literally got my entire library there, which my father-in-law a few years ago made me throw out like 400 other books that I had, but these are the ones that survived it. Now, I have just read that many books. Like I reckon I read in the last 15 years, oh man, at least 10 to 50 books a year. Like, I'm not joking. I'm just constantly absorbing content about personal development, spirituality, financial freedom. You know, it's generally all like biographies of incredible people. Now, these are just some of the books that I didn't throw out, and I've sort of broken them into books that have completely changed my life as an investor, as well as some of the things that I'm planning on reading soon, as well as some of the things that I've enjoyed reading just personally for inspiration. Now, the first one is Your Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm not going to talk about that because everyone's aware of it, but I do remember at 23 years of age, picking it up. I was supposed to be going to a party to get super drunk with my girlfriend, now wife Lisa, and all of her friends, but decided that this book was so good that instead of getting drunk, I just sat by the pool at the party and read the book, and people were like, what the hell are you doing, man? And I'm like, this book is going to change my life, and it completely has. This is a book that nobody talks about that will absolutely change your career, your job, and your business, or your ability to negotiate as an investor. Now, it's called Secrets of Power Negotiations by Roger Dawson. It's available on Audible, I think, as well. My brother and a few of the team members are listening to it now. Absolutely insane value. The things that I learned in this book, I've done every single day of my life since, whether that's negotiating a phone bill, whether that's buying an investment property for myself or a client, whether it's giving advice to team members. Absolutely game changing. There's this one part in the book where he talks about when you go in to negotiate with any person, knowing what you are gonna say and then knowing what you really want. And there's so many incredible examples of like big negotiations that he's been in and politicians around the world have been in, like some of the most heavy stuff you've ever seen, and just how effective these techniques are. Now, my entire team bases our negotiation strategy around this model. We go in with really, really shitty price that's low. Then we go in with like really bad terms, knowing that where we want to get it. And then we just play the game of squeezing the person that we're negotiating with to that level. Secrets of Power Negotiations, game changer. Absolutely the same with this book, Unshakable. Talks about, it's Tony Robbins' book. It's the small version of Money Master the Game. Absolutely incredible book. Talks about so many things that I didn't understand, like biases, like long-term cycles, about index funds versus trying to trade through managed funds for stocks. Just incredibly good value book based off years and years and years of his research and talking to the absolute top dogs globally in terms of the hedge funds and the wealthiest people on the planet. 20 odd billionaires were interviewed on what they would do if they were just getting started again. Like, amazing read. This book, very, very hard to find, very, very expensive to buy. I've ripped the cover off it because I like that old school look. This is Fred Harrison's book, The Power in the Land. Fred goes and looks at 350 years worth of booms and busts in the UK market from a property perspective and a stock market perspective, and then he helps you identify a pattern. Absolutely data heavy book, but an absolute game changer. If you understand cycles and you understand timing, then it's almost solely attributed to this type of book, which is obviously another one of my favorites. This is again hard to find, but available. Phil Anderson's book, The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking. He looks at 250 years worth of American booms and busts, because after reading Fred's book, Phil went, well, I wonder if the same thing's true in America, or Australia. And so we went and looked at this. Very, very, very data heavy book. I would just go, if I was reading it again, straight to the last chapter, figure out the connections between all of the things in the past. And then if you're really interested in data and history like I am, then read through every single boom and bust in the last 250 years. Like, it's fucking incredible. It's from literally the cowboy days up until now. Game changer of a book. Like, once you understand timing and cycles, it will completely change your world as an investor. Since I've understood that stuff, my returns of as an investor have literally doubled. Now, some of the other books that I enjoy reading, this is The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. Just tiny little, meditations for each day or thoughts for each day from people like Marcus Aurelius. A whole lot of my notes just dropped out from my holiday when I was reading it last. I should probably pick them up and see what I was saying to myself. But incredible, like some of the best minds in history thought in the Stoic way. Now, he described Stoicism, which I thought was cool, in the sense that like the Zen monk goes and sits on a waterfall for their entire lifetime to try and find that presence and peace in their life. The Stoic is someone like you or I living our daily lives with families, politicians, business owners, workers, and has that like Zen mentality or that chillness and that presence, but actually is a contributing functional member of society, you know what I mean? So really interesting read, some really cool stuff in just terms of different ways to think about things. One of my biggest heroes of all times was Muhammad Ali. I've read so many of his books, his memoirs, his biographies, and watched every single one of his docos. This one, Muhammad Ali, a memoir by Michael Parkinson, is absolutely epic. It just gives you a real insight into Muhammad Ali's mind, and that's what I'm most interested in when I'm reading biographies of people that have done incredible things. I'm not so much looking for the life story, I'm looking for the consistent things in terms of their daily habits and annual habits that they applied consistently over time, or the lessons that they learned when they were reflectively looking back that changed everything for them. Now, I don't have some of the other big ones that I've read, but some of the other big books that have changed my world were all of the Richard Branson series, all of the Warren Buffett series as well, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger book as well, which was just insane in terms of just how he knew what he was going to do before he did it. He set an intention and made it happen. And also when he went from being a bodybuilder to an actor, he realized that, he had the skills, which was working hard and being focused to get into acting. But when acting wasn't working first time around, he went, well, I'm just going to commit 6 hours every day for the next 2 years to become a great actor. Went full on in the coaching and doing everything necessary and got the result. And I just absolutely love that. Like, it is all about the plan, visualizing where you want to be, and then consistently showing up with discipline to make it work, and you'll get to where you want to be. This book was pretty cool just in terms of accountability. Me and my friends from Sydney that I grew up with have this saying, and it's like, just live your life above the line. That means being accountable, responsible, ethical, having integrity, taking ownership, and being a good person. And then there's people that live below the line, which complain, don't plan, don't take any responsibility for their decisions, and always think the world's happening for them, not with them. This book was like that on overdrive. It's called Extreme Ownership, and it was about how Navy SEALs lead and win by Jocko and Leaf. And it was just like a hell intense way of thinking about this stuff, but just really taking personal responsibility for yourself and your life. Now, what I'm most interested in at the moment, outside of my property investing stuff, is spirituality. Like, I've been really drawn at the moment to people like Eckhart Tolle and Oprah, Nantak, Dalai Lama. Like, I'm really liking the way that those people are living and finding peace and presence while they're here, and realizing that we are actually living heaven on earth right now. But I'm also interested in how I can become a better leader, a better team member. So the next two books I'm going to look at, one was sent to me actually by Sam. Thank you so much, Sam. I still haven't read it. She booked a strategy session with me like 4 years ago. She didn't end up moving forward with the business, but she just read this book and thought that I'd love it. This is by James Kerr, and it's like called Legacy. It's all about what the All Blacks can teach us about business and life. I'm super excited to read that. The other book that I want to read is Simon Sinek, and I've read his book Start With Why, and I've seen all of his material on it. But this is his next one, Leaders Eat Last. So I think to go to where I want to be in my lifetime, learning how to be like an incredible team member, chilling out a bit and becoming a more effective leader is what I need. And, you know, I don't want to be like a micromanager. I don't want to be on top of people. I want to like grow and learn. And like the Arnold Schwarzenegger way, if you want to learn something, that's one way I'm doing it. I've also just subscribed to the masterclass series for like $200 for the year. I'm following the leadership series from the lady who is the chief editor at Vogue. I'm also following the leadership series there from the founder of Starbucks. So it's like, if you can learn from the best, may as well just get access to the best for $200 a year. It's insane. On top of that, I listen to some podcasts, mainly the ones my brother shares with me. I like Tim Ferriss' podcast. I love Oprah Winfrey's Masterclass and Super Soul podcast. I get heaps of weird stuff from my wife about relationship stuff that I'll listen to. I'm more of a YouTuber though, to be honest with you. Like, I love YouTube, so I'll constantly be watching different things about different people. And now that Netflix and Stan are just producing so many high quality docos, I'm just all over that as well. Like, I just enjoy learning about what great people have done and, you know, tweaking like what I do in my life as a result of that info. So pretty deep way to answer that question, Simo, but you know, I think life is all about growth and those books have changed my life for the better. Got another question here from Josh. He said, thanks again for the awesome videos and advice. What land size would be big enough to build a granny flat and what would be the smallest? And do I need to ask council for approval? It's a really hard question to ask, man, because one, councils are constantly changing their policies around this based on what they want to do. Different states and different councils within each state have completely different policies too. In some areas of New South Wales, it's like 450 square metres is the minimum size. In some parts of Brisbane and the sunny coast, it can be way bigger than that. So it's really just about identifying the market you want to buy in, calling a local town planner and calling the council and just asking them and jumping on their website and trying to figure it out. It's really a case-by-case, market-by-market thing. He also said, I found some movable home pricing starting from 25K. Are they suitable for a granny flat? The granny flats that I build for myself, you know, cost me 115 to 130,000 to build like really, really high quality tiny home that looks cool, that is super rentable. I've seen clients in the past that I haven't worked with but have told me about these relocatable homes that are super cheap. The last guy that I spoke to about doing one of them said that he brought it over from China. It didn't comply. It cost him 25 grand to bring it here and $100,000 to get it to Australian standard. And it ended up looking like absolute shit because it was just nothing. So a big mistake that a lot of people made in Sydney 10 years ago was they just built really low quality granny flats. I think it's an important lesson that I've learned that quality always lasts, gets you high depreciation benefits, gets you better rent returns, and attracts and keeps a much higher quality tenant, which is important for an investment. So for me, I'm not chasing the cheapest shiny thing anymore. It's about doing one thing really well at a time. I'm about to start a granny flat or a tiny home in a few weeks, as well as a new build as well. And I'll show you guys some of that as we get through it. This is another question from Eunice. He said, hey guys, love the vids. How much does it cost to become your customer? What service do you offer? Thank you. His words. I don't talk about price because we've got different ways that people can choose to work with us. But the average buyer's agent generally charges between about $8,000 through to about $16,000 to help. What we do is we really sit down with you. We identify where you are, where you would like to be. We help share some different ideas that have helped people like myself get to where we want to be sooner. We educate you really, really deeply on the market. We help you design your own plan. It's a property plan. It's not financial advice. We're not financial advisors. We identify your next step. We then slowly, over a series of weeks, educate you on the market so that you understand it so well. We then start inspecting properties for you each week, which could take 4 weeks or 4 months until we find the perfect one. When we find the perfect one, we negotiate using some of the ideas from Roger Dawson's book to get you the best price, the best terms. We then introduce you to like solicitors, building and pest inspectors, town planners, property managers, certifiers, builders, granny flat builders, absolutely everyone you need to know to do your due diligence. If they're happy, you're happy, and we're happy, then we move forward. We buy the home, we rent it out. And then for some people that are looking for dual income, we might help them do that as long as the town plans or council position is still suitable to do that. So that's sort of how it works with us. We can help people buy great single income properties close to the city or the beach. We can help people in some markets do dual income properties. We can help people identify great land and build. It's just, really up to your strategy and what you want to achieve. But we really focus on Brizzy at the moment, as well as the sunny coast, because I believe those two markets just have an insane potential over the next 10 years. This is from Drew. He said, how long before being ready to invest in property one should I reach out for a session? Because so many people are following this content now, and we only offer a small number of sessions, which you can jump over to the website and www.pumpedonproperty.com, click the free strategy session and have a look if there's any available, which there normally are. We recommend that you've got at least $60,000 of savings or equity, and that you're seriously thinking about buying in the next 3 to 12 months. For people that aren't in that position yet, just keep following the content, keep learning, and when you get there, we'd love to have a conversation with you. This is from Chanel. Is it better to buy an investment first or your own home as a first home buyer? That's so dependent on your situation and where you live. If you're a first timer in Sydney right now, and the place that you want to live is worth $1.5 million, then maybe that isn't the best use of your funds, especially with the market being so bubbly there at the moment, and the downside risk there as well at the moment. But if you're like a first timer in Brisbane that has, $400,000 budget or something, there are some incredible opportunities as a first timer at the moment, whether you're buying an established home or building brand new, that you can potentially take advantage of. It really comes down to where you're at. Me personally, I bought 2 investment properties before I went and bought my own home. And my first home was super basic. It cost me $310,000. I didn't overextend myself. That's the important thing. If you want to get financially free, don't put it all on the line on your first home. Come back to the dream home when you can actually afford it, or someone else is going to pay for it for you in terms of money that you've made from selling places or passive income that you're receiving from your portfolio. So many people that I talk to get stuck in this trap of I should own my own beautiful looking home, and they want it all straight away. And that means that you're choosing to work for 30 years instead of 15. This is from Jackson JFit. Jackson's one of the top influencers on Instagram and a great friend of mine up here on the sunny coast. He's one of the biggest dudes in Australia from a male fitness perspective. You can follow him at Jackson JFit. He's a beast. We train together every week, surf together. He's just a ledge. He said, what's the cheapest area you buy right now within 30 to 40 minutes of Kawana? Jax, I've said this before, man, delay the home and invest in Brisbane first, man. This is speaking directly to Jackson, not anybody else. 2 houses, 2 granny flats, as long as, everything looks good for that, will set you up for the financial freedom that you're after. And then in 10 years time, we can just train and surf and hang with our families every single day is the goal, man. So, I know there's some parts of the Sunshine Coast that are cheap, but I don't believe in buying further away on the Sunshine Coast than the beach. You really just don't want to be out in some of those further areas, because I don't see the house prices there with so much land available going to where they need to be over the next 15 years. I could be completely wrong, but when I'm investing, it's fundamentals. So Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, if it's the sunny coast or the Gold Coast, then as close to the beach as you can afford. I know there's some big grants around at the moment though as well, which is why you're looking at building brand new. This is from Tash. So the majority of renters are singles or couples. Why do you recommend larger houses to your clients? It's not just cash flow that we're looking to achieve when we're investing in property. We're also looking to time the market. We're also looking to add value to the properties we buy. And we're looking for long-term capital growth. Now, a huge mistake that I made personally recently was building a place on the Sunshine Coast for Airbnb and then building the house too small that it affected my future valuation. I absolutely love 3-bedroom homes and 1 to 2 bedroom granny flats. I think that's the sweet spot of the market from a renter's perspective, but it did reduce my rent return when I turned it over to a long-term rental because of coronavirus, and it affected my valuation by literally over 150 grand by not making the home builder bigger and by not adding a 4th bedroom and a bigger living space. So I'm just trying to balance what the market wants with long-term capital growth as well as strong valuations in the short term. And the banks really understand valuing up bigger 3 and 4 bedroom homes at this stage. You know, even though there's so much talk about affordable housing, the average Australian, from my perspective, as someone who's had a rental management agency that I looked after 200 properties personally, as well as, you know, buying over 400 or 500 properties for myself and clients in the last 10 years, you know, mainly clients in the last 5 years, myself before that, is that it's a fine line between like getting all of those things right. My approach is quality, what mums and dads and families want in great school districts in the capital cities. That's always going to go up in value on the bigger sites. You know, there's other ways to do it though, which obviously people have different ideas. This is from Melinda. How do you rent a granny flat? You know, it really depends on the area. Like in some parts of Australia, you can rent them out to unrelated parties. In other parts, you can't. Councils change their positions all the time. So it's like, you know, in terms of my properties, I just basically rent out the front home and the back home at this stage. It's just, you know, one of those things. It's pretty simple. As long as you follow the council's position at the time that you're buying the asset, it should all be very, very clearly explained by the town planner who you've got to look at the site, as well as your research with the local council, talking to the builder that you're working with maybe as well. When renovating, do you get trades to do everything or do you do it yourself? This is from Mel as well. Like I've said before, I'm not handy at all. My wife says I devalue the properties that I touch myself. I normally get trades. Now, the beautiful thing is some of my best mates own all of the trade businesses. My brother-in-laws, both of them own carpentry businesses and building businesses. My father-in-law is also a builder too. So we generally and my wife's an interior designer. So we just have a good team of people that we now work with, like landscapers, builders, electricians, plumbers, plasterers, painters, and those people, you know, sort out 99% of the stuff for us. When I was just getting started though, I used to do everything myself. Like the second house I bought, I painted myself, carpeted myself. The third place I bought, we did the entire reno except the kitchen ourselves and the tiling, painted the house, the roof, the outside, you know, did all the gardens ourselves. Like I'm just at a stage now with the 3 young kids that I'd rather save some extra money, you know, and then pay someone else to do it than to spend all of my weekends doing it. But at a different stage of my life, I was very, very active because I didn't have any money to pay anyone else. When I bought my third property, I just changed careers and taken a massive pay cut, like 150 grand a year pay cut to re-educate myself. And, you know, my wife was just having our first bub and I was like, there was literally no money left over. Like we were just so week to week, even in a deficit that was insane. So we just like buy paint and slowly do stuff ourselves. And the place ended up looking great. We sold it for a profit and then split that profit into buying 2 more places. Ellen, currently renting, could we buy an investment as a granny flat, live in one and rent the other? It 100% depends on where you're living in Australia. Some councils will let that happen, some won't. Just give a call to a town planner or one of the town planners at the council and just talk about a specific site and ask them if that's possible in your area, which is the simplest way to do it. Shell's just said, do you have any tips for investing interstate? Absolutely. Like we work with people from all over the world and all over Australia to buy in Brisbane at the moment. My tips are, if you're going to do it yourself, stop and slow down. Get super educated past the point that you think is normal so that you understand the market better than anyone else. You know, the rules of investing in quality are buy as close to the city as you can afford or the beach, buy a big block of land, buy in a quiet street, buy in the best pocket of a suburb, you know, buy a property with big land size, buy a property with a good size home. If you're going for the secondary income thing, then make sure that you do your due diligence before you get out there and do it, and just double check where the council's at. There's literally like 130 things that we look at before we buy any property. Do your flood checks, do your housing commission searches, do your pocket of the suburb searches, you know, double check what's underneath the ground if you can. Get your building and pest inspector to check it out. Make sure you've got the right town planner to check out the site before you buy it as well. You know, you're only as strong as your team, and your quality of your investment's only as good as your due diligence, especially if you're investing in interstate and doing it on your own. Double check everything. If you're working with someone else, then obviously make sure that that person's capable and has the knowledge and people on the ground to help you do what you want to do. Hey Rory, good to catch up with you again, man. Good to hear from you. Rory's bought a couple with us at least. How to decide whether to knock down, rebuild or reno older properties. You and I had an epic convo about this the other day, mate. It really comes down to, you know, the entry price and the market at the time of considering it and your long-term intention. Now, I've got a property, for example, close to Brisbane City that I was sitting on for this exact same question. I've decided now to add a secondary dwelling or a granny flat, tiny home, whatever you want to call it, and then renovate the home. But I could have equally knocked it over and rebuilt. The way that I made my decision was, what's the ongoing maintenance going to look like? What's the condition of the current home? What would it look like fully renovated? As well as how much am I going to have to spend? With the knockdown rebuild option, I was going to actually spend 250 grand more to get an extra 50 bucks a week in rent. And for me, that just didn't balance out, which is why I'm going down the reno option. But you've obviously got that epic place close to the beach, man, in Brisbane there. And in your position, you picked it up for basically land value. So I understand where you're coming from. It's just a decision that you have to make at the time that you're thinking about doing it. The last question here is from Blake, or second last, sorry. What are your thoughts on buying a PPR, living in it for 12 months, then turning it into an investment? You know, I don't really have a thought on that anymore, man, because I'm not so much a first-time buyer myself. But I like the idea of it. Like, if I was putting myself in the position now, there's some really strong stamp duty concessions. If you're building, there's some really strong building concessions. You know, depending on each state, I think in most states you have to live in the property for 12 months to qualify. If you're going to do it that way, just make sure you really understand what you're getting yourself into, what the state legislation or policy says around those grants, and make sure you're putting your investment hat on. Like, if you're buying something that is a home to live in, sometimes you can emotionally buy and you can miss out on key fundamentals as an investor. And sometimes if you're just investing and not putting your mum and dad hat on, you can miss out on key things as an investment as well. So I would say, if you're going to buy it as your own home and only live in it for a short period of time, then make sure you do your fundamentals, make sure you treat it like an investment. You tick all of those boxes I just mentioned for the interstate question a moment ago, and you get yourself quality. Make sure you also do what the government says that you're supposed to do, because the last thing you need is to be, you know, in the grey area when it's very, very black and white around that stuff right now too. Troy, what information do you follow on a weekly and a monthly basis? Big question, bro. I love Heron Todd White's stuff personally. I follow their month in review report. I love CoreLogic stuff. I follow their newsletter as well as their monthly indices, updates and videos. I love SQM Research. I follow their reports, their blogs and their newsletter. I also love Michael Matusik's stuff. He's a bit of a glass is half empty type guy, and I like that. A lot of good quality data. I also religiously follow the Commonwealth Bank updates now, because those guys have been so consistently accurate over the last 2 years. It's not even funny in terms of their future forecasting and predictions. Absolutely great information. And then I follow a bunch of different podcasts as well. Like, I'm fans of a lot of the guys in the Australian property industry, even though that some of them also run buyers agencies. They sometimes have good information. I follow blogs, but a lot of the information that I get that isn't hard stuff is from physically being in the market every week for 5 years now. You know, when you buy as much property as we do and talk to 30 or 40 real estate agents every week, you just get such immediate feedback that it's super powerful. So there's some really good free resources. I used to pay for the Residex reports before CoreLogic bought them, which is cool. John Lindemann does some great reports as well. You know, Michael Yardney's got some cool information out there too. So there's heaps of different sources that we collect from. Smart Investor. You know, there's some really, really good resources out there. We obviously have our YouTube channel where we're trying to share great information with you guys too. Our podcast, The Pumped On Property Show, as well as our Instagram and Facebook pages and the blog on our website. So, you know, between that should be enough data to make some really, really smart decisions. On top of that, I follow everything that Fred Harrison says, Ray Dalio says, Warren Buffett says, and Phil Anderson says. They're sort of my like touching the market and figuring out where things are at a macro level, and then I bring it down to the micro level for the specific decisions that I make for myself and my clients make for themselves. I'm just so grateful, guys, for the questions. Please keep them coming. We'll try and do something like this regularly. Really appreciate it. Stay safe in this current marketplace, and can't wait to catch up with you soon.